I'd like to thank everybody to come into our meeting tonight and welcome you to our roof project that is going on. And I hope everybody was able to gain interest without needing a hard hat, because I was a little worried. And when you have your roof completely ripped off and you have 4 inches of rain, and as you can see by the ceiling tiles, and you get leaks all over the place. So they asked me if they needed to quit working for this, and I said no, it's supposed to rain this week, keep going, work get as much done as you can when you have time. So again, thank you guys for coming to this meeting. You know, this is on a possible annexation with Career Tech, with High Plains Technology out of Woodward. Just to let you guys know, at some of the previous schools I was at, this is going back quite a while, but our kids would have career tech opportunities, and you know, so I have witnessed firsthand what that has done in some of our students' lives that we've had. You know, some of the training they could get, because you know, there is not every student we have that is a college-bound kid. I mean, I think from what I've been told, statistics are, we send about 30% of our kids to school, to college. So we have 70% of our population are not going to be college bound. So what can we do to try to help those kids, prepare those kids, for careers after public schools? To let you guys know a little bit on the career tech thing, when I became superintendent here, and I was told by some of the administration that we had looked into this about possibly sending our kids to the career tech in Liberal. So even though previous administrations had pursued that, I did too when I first got here. I called school attorneys. I called and talked to the people at the community college in Votech at Liberal, and everything was a go there until you get to our State Department of Education. And then once you start talking to our State Department of Education, which accredits us, and that's what we have to go through, then the answer is no. They will not grant Oklahoma credit to career tech out of state. And it doesn't, and I ran it up the food chain several different places with the Department of Education, and just to be honest, it doesn't seem like that they have much interest in trying to change that. So we have pursued that opportunity here at Turpin to try to get that done. And I mean, we even outside the box, thinking, well, what if we did some virtual classes here with our kids? To be a full-time student, you have to be in school 6 hours, and so what if we would, could send kids up there and then have them do stuff virtually, and then, well, how are you going to take attendance on that? Because we also get audited on attendance. How are you going? So, I mean, we have tried that possibility and have been denied that, and that has even happened before I was here. So that is something that we have taken a look at. Through the course of this, just let me say that there is a program, and Mr. Holt can talk about this better than I did, but I had an opportunity a few weeks ago to go tour the TAPS facilities in Woodward, and what the TAPS is, that's part of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. I believe Woodward even has some 6th grade students that go to it. So that was just, I mean, I was overly impressed with what I saw there, with the programs that were going on with the students of that age, and that's something that after touring that and seeing that, I mean, I'm just telling you, I am extremely excited about the possibility of our kids to have that opportunity to start getting these programs in front of them, even at that stage. So I won't talk much longer, besides just say I do appreciate everybody coming. Next on the agenda, we have our state representative, Mr. Kenton Pikowski, and he can kind of go through some of the stuff that he has on this.
Well, I'm a local guy. I just live across the river over at Balco. I see a lot of friendly faces, but to those of you that don't know me, I'm Kenton Pikowski, lifelong resident of Beaver County. My mother was a law, homesteaded where my brother lives. Many of you might know my brother, Kerry. He's the talkative one of the family. My father, no doubt was a Petskowski. Homesteaded in the Major County area, on the east side of Major County. So I'm a double-bred homesteader, fourth generation family farmer, just right over here at Balco. He mentioned big state representative. Yeah, that I am, and I guess I'm the guy that maybe kind of kick-started this a little bit. So I'm going to title my little talk is How Did We Get Here? It all kind of started with the census. We did the census and redistricting. Our house district is 61. And as you can imagine, we lost population again. They moved our house district farther east into Woodward County again. And it really got me to thinking, we're just losing too much population. And then about that time, we were doing a teacher pay raise. We was doing some education stuff at the state capitol. And one of our superintendents shared some information with me that was very telling, with numbers of students getting less and less every year. And if you're not familiar with the funding formula, each student carries a number. And if you lose a student, you lose numbers to fund your school. So we're losing population, we're losing moms and dads, we're losing students in our schools, and so we're decreasing in population. So my thoughts go to, how do we stop the population loss? Well, it's difficult to get industry to come in here, because the big buzzword these days, and it's downstate, it's everywhere, and the governor talks about it. He's quite a recruiter. I don't care what you think about the governor. He is a recruiter for business to come to Oklahoma. I will give him a big attaboy for that. But these businesses need workers. They need workforce. And the buzzword that is called workforce development. And I suppose that's about when I had that aha moment. And I was at meetings at High Plains Technology. Different times they send us there for different meetings. And a gentleman by the name of Mr. Holt, you're going to hear him speak in a little bit. He sometimes called me KP, just for short. Have you got a minute? Well, how do you tell him no? Well, about 2 hours later, he was done with me. He needed me just to see what they had. And I had this preconceived notion of what career tech was. And I was way off base. I was thinking post-secondary, after you're out of high school. But career tech has all these opportunities for high school students and middle school students. And in Mr. Holt's presentation, he will cover those with you. And Mr. Smaltz kind of touched on the TAP program, and it hit him kind of like it did me. That lady, Mrs. Goss, in the TAP room. In fact, I had to reach out to her today while I was traveling, because I saw all of her toys in there, and I just wrote some of them down while I was driving. If I can read my first question to her was, I don't guess I ever asked or ever heard Mr. Holt or Mr. Aiken. TAP stands for Technical Application Program, and he'll tell you how it got developed and what it can do for us. But I saw this room full of goodies, just simulator type stuff. She called it hands-on learning. I like that. Computer things, coding, that kind of stuff. Kids really like that. There was a drone deal there. She called it a drone cage. I don't remember that one. But one of the things I really liked was this virtual welder. It does it on a screen, keeps you running the right speed and the right distance. There was a little engine motor, a little plastic thing. They learned the parts of a small engine. Just things like that. And I go, man, that's got a lot of value to it. Getting back, I kind of got on a rabbit trail there, but getting back to how we got here, about that time, after I saw that, I kind of dropped it, and I asked Mr. Holt what it cost, and he's going to give you, and our assessor's going to give you the millage, and my heart kind of sank. It's 12 mills, and I go, that's a pretty heavy lift. Can we do this? And I kind of dropped that thought. But after I saw that TAP room, I never could get it out of my mind. And I will give Mr. Haken and Mr. Holt credit. They never tried to cram their program down my throat. They just let me see it, absorb it, and let me ask all the questions I wanted to ask. And the crazy thing about that, I couldn't leave it alone. It's like I saw it, I believed in it, and maybe some of you agriculture guys, I looked at career tech in a different light, like maybe it's a little fertilizer we could put on public education, a little different twist to it, and create a better educational environment for our students, especially these country students out here. So anyway, then I go to another meeting in Oklahoma City. They're telling me about this new career tech director. Well, we've got him here tonight, Mr. Haken. And he had a little part in the program, and man, he's quite a speaker. So I can't wait for you to hear him, but he's real. You'll like listening to him because he's just down to earth. He's just a country boy like us. And I was probably the first guy to get to him up there. I go, Mr. Haken, I need you to come to my office. We need to talk about career tech. I think there's some opportunities in the far western part of the state that career tech does not cover, and Mr. Holt will have a map and show you where we're lacking. And Beaver County is the next county that could be eligible for career tech. So we're going to explore that opportunity. So he comes to my office, he brings his right-hand man, and he tells me all these things, all these steps that's got to be done, and they're quite extensive. And I'll just briefly kind of run you through them real quick, and then that'll get us to where we are today, to the vote, coming up in January, and then those guys will give the program on what it really looks like. First thing you got to do is find out if there's any support in your communities. So what do? They kind of give me the big overview, and I go, well, first thing to do is go see the mayors of every town. Those are the school superintendents. So I went to each one, all just privately, by themselves, not in a group. And I didn't realize this, but all four of them had some degree of career tech experience already. And they go, wow, we got a shot at maybe doing something like this. I said, well, we're at the beginning stages. Let's see where it goes. Okay, I'm in. So after we do that, the next thing to do is, and actually, next trip to Oklahoma City and you get to thinking about stuff, you start making phone calls. Made a few phone calls in my area, and 2 or 3 of them, people that would have to get out their checkbook and write extra, to fund this thing. They go, heck yeah, man, I'm in. This would be a great opportunity. So I call across the river. A couple buddies up there, 2 or 3 of them. Oh yeah, this might work. Keep us informed. Man, I'm heck yeah, keep moving on this. So at every step, every place we go, I keep getting positive feedback. So then we get the superintendents all together. We call a meeting, and we start planning for what the next move is. And Mr. Haken had Mr. Lockwood with him, and he walked us through all the legalities of what needs to happen next. And then the superintendents start talking to their school boards. The school boards seemed to be very favorable, and they got on board, all 4 school boards. And then the option kind of looked like, instead of a standalone career tech, it looked like if High Plains would take us, we're small enough, we probably can't build a big building, we can't do the big shiny new stuff, but we could start if they would annex and help run us. So that was kind of the avenue we were looking at. And so we got all that done, and then the next step, nothing can happen until the commissioners, and we got one here tonight, Mr. Regier, nothing can happen until the commissioners okay it and put it on a ballot initiative. So that has happened. They have okayed it. It was 3-0 vote, and the ballot initiative is set for January the 9th, and Career Tech is paying for all the voting stuff for that. So as fast as I could tell it, that's how we got here. We're to the point now, there looks like there's enough public support to at least put it on the ballot. Now, we're going to let these guys give their presentation, and you, the voters, will have the final say-so if annexing into High Plains Technology is the thing to do for Beaver County. So that's all I have for this speech. And I believe we're going to turn that over to Mr. Holt. He'll give you his presentation on High Plains Technology.
glad Kenton owned all that of how we got here, because I was really wondering how I got here to this point, but now I know. Apologize before I get started. I'm kind of fighting a cold. We've been stock showing for a couple weekends with the girls and boy, and you breathe enough hog dust and chip dust and dirt, you get to fight a cold over Christmas. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So if you take a drink here a couple times, that's just part of it. Talking about how we got to here, and what's ironic about this process, I think, guys, is that it genuinely started. The first time I knew there was any interest really per se was in about May, about the middle of May, give or take. And they were meeting with the director. Kenton had done just what he said. We had talked a couple times when he was over at the tech center, mainly him just picking my brain and me showing him what it was about. We would sit in there and there'd be stuff talked about in those legislative meetings, and then we would go in there and visit about it. And so that May is when that kind of started, and then I got involved in some of those meetings and question and answer with the superintendents, the commissioners, and it progressed to about October 24th when I did my first podcast ever and started talking about what we do and what the tech center actually is. You've got if you don't have one of these in front of you, that's what we're going off of. There's some more over in that box, Carrie, if somebody needs one. But you've probably seen this seemingly out there. It's in a block flyer, push tab, whatever you want to call it, that's been across the county, and says what we get. And I guess going back, you talk about TAP and everything else, but going back to where we get to on what we wanted to come across with, felt like it's very important. If I was voting for the tech center, if I was voting for anything, I want to know what I'm getting. Grew up on a farm in southwest Oklahoma, so I completely understand what my grandpa had ingrained in me from the time I was born. Is two things he always said. He said, "Son, go get you a real job where you're not farming." That's what he always told me. And then the second thing was he said, if you vote for something, people want to know what they're getting. So as a superintendent at the Career Tech, and I've done this business I've been superintendent for 2 years. I was assistant for 11 before that, and then taught ag and was in the tech center doing ag business stuff, and then taught ag at the high school for 10 years starting out. That's where I cut my teeth. But so we put down on there, and he referenced the TAP program. And when I came over to the technology center, something I saw was people had voted into the technology center, and the bus would run, and it was juniors and seniors. That's the model it's built on, is a half day. And a lot of times you would see when that kids, because of all the activities and the way things have changed, it's a limited number of kids that could get on that bus and come over for that half day. It has to fit in their schedule. So it's always a thing to me that I always felt like if that bus left and there wasn't just 10 kids on it, but there was 20, 26 or 30 or 40 kids on that bus, that's a better taste in the mouth. It's more bang for your buck for what you're voting in. And so really, I'll kind of jump ahead a little bit, but that's the reason TAP is even an availability. I'll go into that a little bit more here in a minute. But if you vote the tech center in, every school will have a TAP center, a TAP teacher. So there'll be a TAP teacher at Turpin, a TAP teacher at Forgan, a TAP teacher at Beaver, and a TAP teacher at Balco. We will come in, we'll do the renovation. That's what we did at Woodward. We came in and did some renovation on some existing space. You guys are really blessed out here. I'm not kidding that you have some existing space that's not being utilized, that when I walk in, I see opportunity. Some people might walk in and see that, and that's really where TAP, when it started 7 years ago, there was some space down at Woodward Schools that wasn't being utilized. Old industrial art space. Most of us remember old shops that were there and stuff, and that's what we went in and renovated. And that's so when they started talking to me about what would work, I said, first off, if you, and Chuck will get into this here in a minute, but if you go into it and you say that it's 10 mills to our general operating and 2 mills building, that's the 12 mills. That's what the tax that you're voting on is. If you go in there and extrapolate that, the 400,000, which is basically give or take on numbers right now what 2 mills building represents, you can't go build a building and add programs into it and have anything more than a building and maybe a couple of programs in a few years with that amount of money. It's a lot better, my estimation, and it's the way we're proceeding, to renovate space and put more programs on the ground in Beaver County. Because the other side of that is you can't travel kids an hour and a half in a bus. Won't work. I mean, it's just not even an option. So when we were talking, I said the way I see it is 4 TAP programs, 1 in each school, and then utilize existing space. And you see there's a couple pictures on that deal of the Beaver primary building and then some facilities that you guys have out behind. There are some options there: construction, welding, mechanics, CDL training, biz services, CNA, LPN, health careers. Those aren't set in stone. I've had that question. They're not set in stone because reality is if this thing passes, then we will do some community meetings. I'm going to tell you, I mean, I'm very easy to get along with, but I've spent 27 years of my life doing this. I grew up with 2 teachers, and my mom and dad both taught school. Dad taught ICE, where it's go to work a half a day and go to school a half a day. And I've spent a lot of time seeing what works and doesn't work in career and technical education. So I'm going to give you my perspective, but I am the leader of High Plains Tech. I'm not the leader of Beaver County. So that when we get to the point, if it passes, we will have some town meetings to talk about and probably further explain why we feel like some of these are good. So that was just trying to do our best effort at saying this is what we would put out there, so you had an idea of what you're getting. The TAP program, he talked about where it comes about, how it came about. Government's a real funny thing. So it's a real fun thing to have to work amongst most of the time. And when I had been in the business for 20 some odd years, and one day the superintendent at Woodward Schools was at our office. Dwight, who was my boss at the time, the superintendent of High Plains at the time, called me and said, "You need to come up to the office." And I said, "Okay." So I went up there and I sat down with him. He goes, "Kyle, tell him your problem." And Kyle Reynolds, who was the superintendent at that time at Woodward, said, "Man, our kids, he said, we're having trouble keeping them engaged." He said, "They're missing school. I've got this and that." And I said, "Okay." Dwight said, "Tell him your idea." And I'd always had the idea. I've always had tried to figure out how to reinvigorate that shop type thing for a middle school type kid so they know what careers are out there. Because by the time we were getting them as juniors and seniors, Dwight had tasked me when he hired me with that he wanted to come in and he wanted those students certified through their junior and senior year. It's almost impossible. When you bring a student in that doesn't know what a 3/4 inch wrench is versus a 1/2 inch wrench, or a socket versus a set of whatever you want to talk about, red's positive, black's negative. And then there's this other little caveat that's happening in our government to where everybody has to be 18 or 21 to be certified. Well, a lot of my juniors and seniors aren't 18. So getting that across and getting them certified was somewhat of an impossibility at some junctures. But the biggest impossibility was, and I've used this a lot here lately, I said, I do a lot of teaching people how to learn. They learn to learn when they come to us. And because really we do this anymore with students, we say, here's 20 problems, do them, and if you make it 70 or above, you're good, and if you make it 70 or below, then we're going to remediate you and we're going to get you some help. That's kind of throwing it all into a deal. But what doesn't happen is you don't give them a reason why they need to know that math problem. And if I was to sum up what Career Tech does, it gives them a reason to why they need to know the math problem, and what TAP does is it ties it to a career. And we're not real smart. I'm definitely not very smart. So we just tied it to our 10 programs that we have daytime-wise, plus LPN, WIND, and CDL, which are adult programs, okay? We just teach those 10 to 13 programs and give them an exposure to that through their 6th through 10th grade year. He said Woodward participates as a 6th grade level. The other schools, it's basically built on an 8th, 9th, and 10th grade model is what it is. Leads them right into their junior year to these daytime programs that we had listed on some of that existing facility at High Plains. They come in, they've got the opportunity to do marketing, diesel, auto, whatever. But it gives them a step up to be ready for that. Back to where TAP came about. So I have this idea, we visit, we go to the State Department because we have to go down there and ask for blessings for anything. And so we drive down there, and me and Dwight are sitting in the room, and I throw this all out. And honest to goodness, guys, everybody asks me, where did TAP come from? I'm telling you where it came from. I'd read an article in Techniques magazine about the week before, and it said the technical application skills are lost in America. And so I'm sitting in this meeting because you're sitting with a bunch of smart people that are way smarter than me, and they're looking at you like you guys are looking at me right now. And I'm sitting there, and they go, well, what are you going to call this thing? And Dwight, I mean, he just got me in the meeting. And I said, well, I think we'll just call it the Technical Applications Program for right now. I mean, that's just kind of how I said that. Well, it stuck, because then everything after that, it just became, they started sending us paperwork about TAP. They started asking where it was going to fall. That was the biggest deal down there. STEM is a big deal, science, technology, engineering, and math. We do that at Career Tech, have been doing that. I really almost take offense to STEM, and I know we've got people in here from different walks of life, but I almost take offense when you say STEM is like this novel thing. My granddad taught me a lot of STEM. I mean, a lot of STEM. My dad taught me a lot of STEM. I learned a lot of STEM in my Ag Ed program. But then all of a sudden, it wasn't sexy enough, so we had to do this so we could put a name on it, and that's what we've had happen. So, you know, we tied it. STEM outcomes are there. You're going to see stuff happen. But TAP is built on that model to get students ready to come into our program so they have a better understanding of maybe sometimes learning to learn, and a lot of times knowing what they don't want to do as much as what they want to do. That's really important when blood is a part of LPN program, and they don't understand that they've always gotten queasy when they're around blood. Well, that's kind of a problem, and it's not something you really want to spend $80,000 at OSU to find out that when you get to a clinical that blood makes you queasy or the smells make you queasy. So I'm going to let Chuck, this is a good segue right here to him. I'm going to let him kind of tell you, we talked about the meals, and just go through that and how it kind of looks in terms of the taxation that you're voting on January 9th. So, Chuck Lemieux.
We have some more of those if there's not enough there. I'm Chuck Lemieux. I'm the current Beaver County assessor. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Career Tech can do to impact your taxes, but I do want to go over a few things. You know, in some of the other meetings, some questions have come up, and so I just wanted to run through a few of these things. You may know this. I didn't. When I moved into the assessor's office, a lot of this stuff was foreign to me. The Oklahoma Constitution tells us how we value property as far as its fair cash value. The real property in the state, we have a range from 11.5 to 13.5. Personal property, there's a range of 10% to 15%. Each county made that decision as to how they wanted to tax those properties. Beaver County is one of 3 that chose to make it 13% for both real and personal property. There's two other counties, Texas County and Cimarron County, that are both at 13%. Harper County is at 12 for real and 13 for personal. Beaver County has an effective millage rate of in 2022 of 6.053. That's the second lowest in the state. The only one lower than us was Cimarron County. Cimarron County was at 6.599. Texas County is at 7.092. Harper County is at 7.275. The highest county in the state is Cleveland County at 118. 10 other counties are over 100 mills. Just like this vote, those mills are also determined by vote. The way we value your property is that we go out and we assess. We look at how it's constructed, how it's built, what materials are used, how old it is, and we put that assessment value in. Then it's multiplied by the county's assessment rate of 13%, and then we add in the mill levy. So each school district has a different levy. So if you'll look at that spreadsheet, if you go down the list there, I did find some properties. These are real properties in Turpin, and just to give you an idea of how those would be valued, one thing that I want to point out, that last column there has caused a lot of questions. It's a percent of change, and honestly, it's probably something that maybe I should have left off the form, but I put that in there just to show what the change would be. But as you go down through that list, you notice Beaver County, or Beaver, is at 14. Forgan would be at 16. Turpin would be at 15. One of the questions that comes up is, why is Beaver lower? Okay, this is a percent of change. It's not 12 mills is 12 mills. It's not that they're going to pay less in millage. It's that their levies are already one of the highest in the county. So that kind of, when you spread that out over a 73.8 mil, that's going to show less change between where they were and where they go. Okay. Anyway, so if you look at that, at those examples, you can see the fair market value of the properties to start with, the county valuation, the current mill levy for Turpin, and then the estimated tax on that property that way. Then if you add in the career tech levy, you see the difference in what it would be to add that 12 mil. In the stuff that I handed out, I guess there's such thing as information overload, but I gave you a list of the 2022 state personal property assessment rates, the 2022 real property rates, just so you can kind of see what it's like around the state. Okay, Beaver County is kind of in the middle of the range on the personal. I'm sorry. On the personal property, and then closer to the top of the range on real property. And then there's also 2022's effective millage rates, just so you can see what some of the millage rates are around the state. And then there's a comparison between 2022's millage rates and 2023, so you can see how the millage rates change from 2022 to 2023. Some of those for example, Beaver, in 2022 they were at 75.14. They went down to 73.6. Your millage rates, if you've got a bond issue, that's going to affect it. If you if you have some project that you're working on and you vote for a bond, that could affect it. These millage rates could go up or down depending on what you do. We don't see those millage rates until about October or November. So as far as everything that we're looking at, they're of course estimates. And then that final thing that's in there, if you just look at the 12 mills and you base it on $1,000, 12 mills of $1,000 would be $1.56 per $1,000 evaluation. So, and then there's some examples there to show how that pan out with other values. You know, we don't know what those levy values will be at that time. If you have any question or you don't know what your home values are, you want to know how it would personally impact you, just give us a call, come in the office anytime. Thank you.
Questions that have come up at previous meetings, getting better at this. Our 12 mills, on that ballot, it will not say the millage. It's not my choice. It's the way the law reads it, and the reason they do that, the explanation to me is that if they put a millage on there and then it came back, say it passes, and then you came back to vote it later, or you wanted, if anybody ever wanted to raise that, and I clarify, it would have to go back to a vote of the people to be raised. But if it ever went back to a vote, and that, say you were at 12 mills, and we're happy with what we're getting, but we just don't want to pay 15, then you're voting on the 15, and the 12 would go. So if the 15 failed, you wouldn't even be you wouldn't be voting that 12 anymore. So that's the reason they don't put the millage in there. In my little feeble mind, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it makes sense how that would go. But I can tell you this, on the 12 mills, and Chuck, correct me if I'm amiss on this, the 12 mills at High Plains was voted in, that's what our board decided in 1981 when this thing came into existence, and it still remains 12 mills today. There's been the misinformation out there basically that the tech center can raise that millage. Tech center cannot raise that millage. The board could say they wanted to raise it, but I'm just telling you, in 43 years they've never, and we've operated with that 12 mills. That millage does not change. Yeah, our millage has not changed in 43 years. So that question's come up a lot. And then the other question that came up out of that is, well, how do we not know all our money is going to Woodward? And why would we send our money to Woodward? And the reality is this, and Kenton kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Vici, Fargo, Buffalo, Moreland, I can go down the list, could not afford to have a tech center by themselves. That's the reason it's an area tech center. So to get the services that we're going to put forth, it is an area effort. It is an area tech center. You actually will be the first in the state to have a TAP program in every school. That's a new model. I mean, I'll own it. I think it's the best way to go. I think it's where you get kids the most impact. And then you'll also be one of the first, probably the first, right, to have a career tech program 100 yards from here, 100 yards, and that's the superintendents have agreed to make that work, and we're going to do what we can to make it work. Back to the PowerPoint. Oklahoma Career Tech System began with Smith-Hughes Act. Most people are familiar with FFA. That's where it came about. That's where funding for Career Tech started years and years and years ago. They established as a part of State Department of Education in 1929, and still to this day, the state superintendent sits on our board. Our board is appointed by the governor, and Brent will get into that a little bit later, but that is still the model that we operate under. The history of Oklahoma Career Tech is kind of cool in terms of it started with FFA and it's grown from there. And sometime I think it's in the 50s, I'm going to get messing up on my history, but we came back and we stood aside these area tech centers to get kids better skills in the high school and get out to work. They started the area schools. Along with that happened at that time, and I'll get into this a little bit further, Francis Tuttle had the idea that business and industry, and it's ironic that fast forward to 2023, and I think High Plains does it at a very, very good clip. He saw the need that industry could drive where education needed to be, and he said you need to have that influence. We have a very, very big business and industry department at our place. We are the #1 in the Americas in GWO training for the wind farms, okay, for the wind technician training. Our kids, when they graduate, they got a job. And we run 20 of those kids twice a year in a 20-week clip. LPN, we passed the NCLEX 100% the last 2 years. That's every kid that went through our LPN program passes it. And then our CDL program that we started last year, I got that started about a year ago. We've run 3 classes. We graduate in 5 weeks. We'll run about 10 people through there, and they'll leave with their Class A CDL. Just graduated that class last week, the 3rd one. That's the business and industry side, but something that most people don't know. CF, you're familiar when you come into Woodward, CF plant that does all the used to be Terra Nitrogen. We do a ton of safety training with CF, and I tell you that not because of the training that we do with them that's on the business and industry side. What'd you tell me? 6 million? 6 million contact hours across Career Tech in the state of Oklahoma this year in business and industry training. What's been really cool with CF, and I dreamed this would happen, I thought it would happen, and it's now happening. CF comes into our TAP program. They came in and put soundboards throughout our TAP program because they saw it needed to happen. They come in and they're engaged once a month. We have a business and industry come in and do what we call a TAP club in the evening or after school. Western Equipment, the John Deere dealer, comes in and does a month. Our local EMTs, firemen, they take a month. Our CF comes in and does it. Different industries, Northwest Electric, come in and talk to these kids about what they could be doing later on, which just ingrains why. I mean, I use that all the time as to why, and so that's been a really cool thing to watch happen with our with just our model. Fast forward through that to the what I call the white space map. This one here. He talked about that a little bit earlier. Something that I've been on him to get done, and I don't know what he's done the first 9 months on the job, but anyway, he says he travels a lot and eats a lot in the vehicle, and he was very thankful Travis did the meeting at 6 and not 7, so he can get back to Morrison before. But I think something that's really ironic. Look at that. If you see white space, there's not a area tech center. They're not. Those counties, those areas are not members of an area school. If you have lived in Oklahoma over the last 5 years, for sure, you've constantly heard the Eastern Oklahoma, the Northeast, the Pryor, the effort that's been there. I student taught in Adair in 1996. Pryor Industrial Park had a soybean rendering company is all that was there. If you go to Pryor today and look at that industrial park, I don't even want to start naming it because I'll mess it up, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars of industry that's in that Pryor Industrial Park. And when I first started, I mean, in 96, it's not that long ago, doesn't seem like that long ago to me, there was one company there. And it had been there 10 years and had 15 employees. If you look at that comparative to us in northwest Oklahoma, look at how much white space we got. I don't think that's total coincidence in terms of industry and business and industry training. Go into a little bit of how we're governed. I twisted his arm tonight to get him to come out again. I said, hey, you know, it's important for me that he's there, that he's here. He gets it. Brent can dress up good, but he can just talk pretty frank too. And I certainly appreciate what he's done being our director. It's been really refreshing. But he is our director, Brent Haken. Then I'm the superintendent of the tech center at the area school. Above us, as I mentioned earlier, he's got a board and I've got a board. His board is appointed by the governor. My board is elected, and it's representative of our district. I go in 2020, so at the last census, I had to go in by end of 2020, and we had to redistrict our area. And when I go in there, it's zoned out. We got 5 zones because we have 5 board members. If Beaver County passes, then the question always comes up, will we have representation? And unequivocally, from my standpoint, absolutely you'll have representation. But by statute, that happens at census, correct? I believe it's at census. So at the census, we will redistrict. That's not what I came up with. That's what your forefathers came up with that are a lot older than me. And that's what the law is. So when that happens, and I break it down like this to keep it simple for you. We run on about 25,000 population is about what is represented at our tech center right now. So if we just say Beaver County is 5,000 to 6,000 people, that's pretty close. So now we're going to take 30,000 divided by 5. It basically makes sense that Beaver County has a representative, is what that would look like, pretty much. Now, my board can elect to go to a 7-member board, or they can elect to stay at a 5-member board. So that's things that those people were elected to do their job. They govern me. I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you those are the options we've got. And I know that when I'm the one that goes and does the redistricting, I sat down there at the Capitol, did my first one 2 or 3 years ago, and when you pull that, it's just going to line up that Beaver County would only make sense, and that was one representative. So kind of put that for any of you that had questions on that. Career Tech Delivery Arms goes through kind of as the whole adult ed and literacy skills centers. Adult ed would be like our TANF programs. We have some TANF programs across the state that are needy family A lot of those single parents come in and get trained. They get some money from workforce, and we participate with that, and we get them in a program. Skill centers are at the prisons. Pre-K 12 school districts would be like your comprehensive programs, your home ec, your ags, that kind of stuff. Business and industry, I talked to you a little bit about that, and then the area tech schools, which that's what we're talking about here. High Plains area, we got our own little three-circle model, and we have one more than everybody else in the state's got, guys. And that's just the way it is, and we're way proud of that. And it's something that, and we talked about it at length. It's the TAP deal. It's the middle school program. Nowhere else in the state does that. We supported that through our funding. I mean, Brent has yet to come across any money for that. Not that I haven't tried. Not that we don't continue to try. But it's a deal like this. This is the way I describe it. I want to put every kid on the highway. I have 100% of the kids, and somebody mentioned it earlier that 70% are not going to college, 30% are. Okay? Of that 30%, two-thirds of them are going to succeed after the first year. One-third of them is going to be back needing a career. So 80% of the kids, they're on the highway that I'm a part of. And I believe that every kid starts off on a highway. And the exit ramp to wherever they get to needs to be their family and their choice to get to where their level of success is. And I have kids that get off that highway, they go over here and do a job for 2 years, and then they decide, man, I want to go to higher ed, to a college, and I want to get because of management position. I had a guy call me a month and a half ago. This goes back to the business industry thing. But he called me and he said, hey, Mr. Holt, he said, I've done a lot of stuff on computers, and I don't think he would mind. He worked for Western Farmers Electric, and he said, I've had some experience, but he said, I need brushed up on skills with Access, with Excel, with some of that stuff. He said, I really think I got a chance for promotion, but I need that, and I don't have time to go to a 20-week class or a semester class or whatever. I said, okay. I made a few phone calls with my staff. We used our daytime instructor. We got him in there. He called me back. It's been 10 days, 2 weeks ago now. Called back, and he said, hey, I got the job. And he said, I really believe I got the promotion. He said, I don't think there's any doubt I got it because he'd tried for this one time before, and he wasn't using that stuff all the time. So he's not a guy that's going to lie to you, and he didn't want to say I'm using it every day. But this time he'd go in there and say, I spent 3 nights out there working, and I've got a certificate that says I did that. We do that all the time, and that's I say it's just a phone call away in terms of can we make it work. The next page, those are QR codes. You could look at any of our programs. Those are short videos. We did that a few years ago, long before Beaver County was even an idea. We use those for marketing all the time. They do a pretty good job telling you the story, so you can QR code them and watch those videos. TAP, we've talked about that one. It's ironic right there. Dana Goss runs that program. I hired her 7 years ago. She does a phenomenal job. We have kids on all different levels. At any given time you come in there, you may have 60 or 70 kids in that program. Now, she's not doing it all by herself. There's about 5 or 6 instructors down there now, a couple of assistants and some instructors. But that thing she's leaning on right there is a tape measure that the kids built. And all it is 16th, quarter, eighth, inch and an eighth. I'm telling you, that's what she does every day, is teach them how to measure, how to go grab the right wrench. And the most important thing that happens at TAP every day is of the simplest of things. It's every kid that walks in TAP will shake hands with that teacher. And when we hire teachers out here to teach that TAP program, that will be a part of it, because we get more mileage when employers come in that the kids can look them in the eye and shake their hand than anything else we do. I can mark down all the skills in the world, and I'm telling you that one resonates with everybody. Kind of goes on the things I've already told you about TAP. Something that that will go amiss if I don't say it. It's been a big deal for our kids that are in our daytime programs to see themselves as leaders to the TAP program. A lot of our kids when you take out a small school, my kids have been in a small school, that's where I grew up in. You know, you take out 5% of the kids that are your president, your FFAs, and your homecoming king and queen or whatever. That can end up being a small percentage of your deal. But how many kids are down through there that are going to be a supervisor at a company or something like that, and they're getting a skill? Those kids, putting them in a program, our daytime kids coming out there and leading those tap kids and teaching them how to weld and doing that, just takes them to it. You can just see the energy they have, seeing that, I'm somebody. And that's really what I go to work for every day. Daytime programs, we talked about that with welding, diesel, the ones we have. Guys, I can give you an example in my hometown where they joined the tech center years ago. I mean, Hobart's always been a part of Western Tech. A few years ago, 15 years ago, Western Tech went in and built a building in Hobart. It does not have a program in it. It is a meeting building. That's what they do. They meet in it. They have meetings for this and meetings for that. And I will not be a part of that, and Brent knows that. I would not be a part of this thing if y'all said, we want a building, that's the deal. I would not do it, because we could put a building here, and in 8 or 10 years we might have 1 program, 2 programs. What we're going to do is going to put 4 TAP programs in there, and then it's going to put programs in these existing facilities. Post-secondary, I already kind of went through that. Advanced wind, practical nursing. We will put a practical nursing program in Beaver County. That's our goal. We're going to run it. We can run 1 to 8 on our teacher to student ratio. So my director can have more instructors. Board of Nursing governs that, but we can run, and we will put a LPN instructor out here, and we will at 8, when we have to add to that, we'll go to 16. I mean, that's just what we'll do. We'll add another instructor when we get past 8. So right now that program runs about 16 is the tops. I think we got 15 in there this year, I think, and so that's the most that we can actually. We could probably finagle and take a little bit more, but it really gets, because we got the director. But when you go, it really gets clinical limited. Your clinicals limit what you can do a lot too. Leadership benefits to just TAP in general. Something everybody, I said we're gonna do an ACT program, or we're gonna do the ACT, and I said we're gonna take that ACT, we're gonna use that as our test. We've raised that ACT on our students 3.19 points, and that's counting the pre-ACT. That was them taking the pre-ACT to an ACT, which I didn't know that just until the other day, that the pre-ACT is actually guessing what you would make as a junior or senior, not what you'd actually make. So we're probably raising it more 5 or 6 points, if you want to know the truth. CTSOs are like FFA. We've had several of those as state officers. And then my contact on the back, guys. I told Director Haken I'd give him a chance to speak, and you can wrap this thing up, and then we'll take any questions you got after he's done.
Awesome. Thanks, Barkley. So, yeah, give him a round of applause. He deserves it. I'm not going to drink your tea for you, though. All right, I'm glad to be here, guys. Like I said, Brent Haken, I'm the State Director of Oklahoma Career Tech, and it's been a real privilege to do what we do. I'm similar to Barkley's background. I started out as an ag teacher for 8 years and loved every minute of it, and probably would still be there if my wife hadn't said, hey, we've got this kid that's premature and I'm going to be at the hospital for 4 months. You need to go find a different job because you can't be gone every night. So it worked out that I moved into administration, and I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. And now being at the department for almost a year, it's 11 months, have got to see what I really hoped I would get to see is the fact that we can do more. We can do more in Oklahoma education. We can offer more opportunities. We can push the limits of what they say that we offer for students and adults, and that's my whole purpose for being in this position, and for really probably being on this earth, is figured out how can I build hope in people, because we all have that desire that we want something more for our kids, or we want something more for our family, we want more for ourselves, and that's kind of what I'm about and what we do. We do that through Career Tech because we really put training to work, we put education to work, and we've talked a lot, and I'm not here to sell you something. I was talking to my dad on the way out here because he's kind of taking care of the farm for me when I'm not at home, and he says, I can't believe you work for the government, because he always said, oh, the government shows up saying they're going to help. And so, yeah, he's only 65, but I already feel like I got a whooping coming at some point, because It's not the way I was raised, but I really do feel like we can help and we can change that, that negative nature of what we do, because we want to make a difference. So I don't want to sell something to you, but I want your questions. I want feedback. However I can help. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Career Tech is in the state of Oklahoma, because we're different than every other state in the nation, and a lot of people don't know that. The way that we're formed, the way that we have local funding, the way that we supplement from the state side. I oversee 140,000 students that are in K-12 programs. So that's the FFAs, the FCCLAs, the BPAs, all those different things that we have in our schools. And I oversee 32,000 now full-time training students. So those are the students that Barkley was talking about that we want to bring to Beaver County. We want that to be a real educational platform for them. So that's adults and kids. I oversee, like I said, 6 million. Well, that equates to a little over 8,000 businesses that are served in the state of Oklahoma. And he pointed out the white space map. It's really, really easy. And I told him it's not easy to put the data to it, but it is really easy to see whether you're looking at Durant, you're looking at Pryor, you're looking at Oklahoma City, where they have technology centers. They train businesses, and businesses come in. Okay, Goodyear's in Lawton. Why is Goodyear in Lawton? Because there was a tech center that was willing to train their employees there. Why is Hitachi in Oklahoma City area? Because the tech center was willing to partner and train. Why is Pryor's industry growing? They train them. Port of Catoosa has done the same thing. They have 3 tech centers that border them. They train all those individuals. So if you want businesses to be able to recruit and have a workforce, that's really what drives it in the state of Oklahoma. We talked a little bit about our students that graduate and what do they do after. Well, I'm like Barkley. I mean, that highway, I don't care where they go. I hope they get all the way to the end. I have a couple of degrees myself. I hope that a lot more students pursue it. The fact of the matter is that neither one of us, higher education or career tech, are serving enough right now. More kids need to be in either or both. 73% of all LPNs in healthcare come through a career tech system. 73% of them. Well, you don't have training in Beaver County right now, okay, for that opportunity. And we need it. Because then they may also want to move on to be an RN or a PA. So there's opportunities for people, and when we don't provide that pathway, then we've cut them short. So that's really what I'm about, is how do we build those different things. HVAC technicians, electricians, I don't care what a student wants. What I want is for them to be able to have that life success that they're after. Because none of us just work to go to work, right? We work so that we can earn the type of life that we want. And that's what we hope we can help with, what we hope we provide to people, is a real honest solution to how do you get education, how do you get training. I live in Payne County, and we've got a whole different assessment rate. It's a lot higher than what we have here, and I'm glad that my students, my kids, my own kids, have that opportunity because of the rest of my family. That's how we were born and raised. I was the only male in my family to go to college, still the only one so far. A lot of the girls have went and graduated, but the guys, they just go back and farm and or harvest. We do custom wheat harvest. I used to grow up cutting milo out here in the Panhandle when I was a kid, and most of them support that by being a welder, being an electrician, being an equipment operator, diesel technician, and those opportunities are real and they pay really, really well. And I hope that some of those also see that, man, I could get a business degree also. I could start my own business. But what we're about is building opportunities for people. And I want every student in Oklahoma to have those same opportunities. I want every adult to say, I'm tired of what I'm doing. I want to be able to upskill. I want to be able to get a promotion. That'd be better for my family. That's what I'm hoping for. And that's what I hope that we all want. And at the state, we're here to support. Like Barkley said, I serve a board, but I oversee all of our technology centers and all of our adult education programs, all of our K-12 programs, and we accredit and we make sure that those are on track as well. So we have a role to play in supporting, and we have a role in playing that everybody does the right things that they need to be doing for students. So I take that job very seriously. What I would say about High Plains Technology Center is that you're wondering also, I mean, like Barkley brought up, well, are the funds generated from this going to go to Woodward? What I can say about what I've seen by studying the data that comes through our office, because we collect all the data, is High Plains Technology Center, along with a couple other Northwest schools, have the highest service rate of high school students of anywhere in the state. And they really mean it when they say we want to serve students. We don't want to turn anyone away. So I can say that I can validate that from the data. I can also say that the ambitions that High Plains Technology has, not just Barkley but his staff, of how they want to make a difference in their communities and the way that they serve, whether it's at a show or whether it's at a community event, they show up and they take part in that. So I have a lot of pride in what our schools do. I have a lot of pride in what High Plains does because they stay focused and they stay on track. So I'm very honored that we could be even discussing this. Because there have been a lot of kids since 1969 when we had our first inception of our board that did not get to take advantage of a technology center. And I hate that for anyone to miss that opportunity, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you would have. Barkley, is there anything else you wanted me to really cover from the state perspective? Kenton, anything? I mean, I was glad. I was a brand new state director, not having a clue what I was doing. He said, come to my office. It's like, oh, great. I don't even know what legislators do. But I went to his office. He had an idea of what can we do, how can we help Beaver County. And I said, I think we can help. We can bring some solutions, and we'll see if the people want to do it. That is the best system of anywhere in the country where the people decide this is the school we want. This is what we want to happen. So I'm just glad to be a part of it, glad to support, and we'd take any questions that you have. For any of us, not just me. Yep.
Where does the curriculum come from?
Yeah.
Or have teachers that you would implement? I mean, is that set from the state? Or
So we have a division that oversees some of that, but really TAP is a fairly new model, and they're the only ones, and I'll let him speak to that. But we're wanting to be able to replicate what they're doing. So we have different divisions, and I'll speak to curriculum in general, and then I'm going to let him talk about TAP because I think that's a great segue to talk about all the things we do. So my program areas that have program specialists that travel the state, that's their job. Make sure that we're meeting the accreditation standards, make sure that the curriculum being taught is driven by industry demand. We are different than most educational institutions where we don't have a benchmark set of criteria. We have advisory committees and advisory councils of business people that dictate what will be certified. Okay, so everything that we do, and he spoke earlier, we can't always get a high school student to certification level, but everything that we do is driven toward a certificate that gets them employed. So the businesses help drive that. My specialists make sure that they're on track and then they're within their bounds. Other specific programs like the nursing, like cosmetology, they have a board that sets what that curriculum would be also. I'll let you speak to TAP.
Yeah, I mean, spot on that. That the NCLEX, if you're talking about LPN, if you're talking about WIND, our guys and gals leave with 26 certifications from there. Whatever that certification is, we just kept it simple when we started TAP and said, let's just step it down through our daytime programs, getting them ready for that, and let's step it down to TAP, getting them ready for daytime. What it's done is you hear about vertical alignment within education. What it's done is it's forced my crew to vertically align. I can tell you in terms of this, a real easy one to grasp is safety goggles, safety glasses. It's miserable to get kids to wear. It's miserable to get instructors to wear safety glasses. But since we started doing it from the top down that way, and my kids learned it at TAP, and I mean it was held harmless. I mean you had to do it there. Now my instructors now in the daytime programs wear safety glasses because the kids come in there knowing this is the expectation. Are you not even going to expect it of it? It just so when I've had that question. Is it a specific curriculum? Is there I mean when the superintendents came over, that came up the other day. Well, what are you teaching? And I said everything's based on those 13 programs, and it just steps back from there. And my instructors are at TAP. My TAP instructors are out the daytime programs and the industry programs.
So an example of that might be not just with TAP, but any of these programs. Oh, I think I'm speaking to my mic. Sorry. So an example of that is there we go. If a student has to have OSHA 10 and they have to have a journeyman certificate in a certain trade, then that's what we're stepping down. So where do we start with these kids and what can they attain? But all of it is driven by the industry says this is what you have to have when you get out of here to be employed, and that's what we base it off of. So we don't, the industry may be different in different parts of the state, and that's one thing that we have to explain to the feds every year. I get ready to go to D.C. in February, and I've got to explain to them. They're like, well, career tech in Oklahoma just doesn't make any sense because not everybody's the same. I said, well, the people that are employing our students at Goodyear want this certificate, but the people that are employing them in Northeast Oklahoma at Continental, they want a different certificate. So we base on what's in demand. We don't base off what you at the Fed say is the right education. We would never do that, then people don't get employed. We have a 93% positive placement rate of our students because we focus on what's going to get you hired right away. So that's kind of how we shape our curriculum, and then our councils set that. More so in our K-12 programs, yes. So we use ICV extensively in ag, in family consumer science, even a little bit of BMIT, a little bit of the entry-level T&I. Job of getting students exposure. Most in some of their certificate areas are linked, but most of what they have is not linked directly to Oklahoma certificates. Does that help you? Yep. But we've been ag probably our biggest user.
There you go.
Good. You're good.
On the equipment stuff, through those, we pay for we buy the equipment to go in there. That's within that 10 meals. I mean, that's our.
I'll get it. I'm sorry.
Hey, if it was me running technology, we couldn't do it by tomorrow. So, no, we do that. I estimate, and I told we've sat down and kind of scratched some numbers on what we think. I think it'll take about 800 to 850,000 in salary. So that comes out of that 10 meals. That 10 meals generates $2 million, about 850 in salary, and the rest of that it'll be in supplies and equipment.
I wasn't slated to speak, but as I said, my name is Dr. Julie Dinger. I'm the president of Oklahoma Panhandle State University, just one county over in Texas County. Got to say, I'm a little jealous that we're not having these conversations right now in Texas County as a parent of 3 children in our local public school. I want to follow up on kind of some things that everybody's been talking about tonight. Really starting with Representative Patskowski. This is an opportunity for. We lost me. There we go. This is an opportunity for us as educators to educate all of our kids in this area. And so for me, a lot of times you'll see career tech and higher education like it sounds like we're against each other, or maybe we're fighting for the same group of kids. The truth is that if we educate all of our students in our area in these STEM areas or in these technical applications, it makes all of our students better prepared. And it helps make sure that there are jobs and careers for them right here in the Oklahoma Panhandle. That's something that we're really passionate about, and I appreciate Representative Patskowski talking about. We have brain drain going on in our area right now. Our high school students, when they graduate, if there's not something for them to do here, if they don't have a skill that they can go out to, or if they don't come to Panhandle State University, which we'd love as many of them to come to OPSU as possible, but it's not for everybody, right? Making sure they have the skills so that they can raise a family, they can live the life that they want to live is critical. And I really appreciate the analogy of a highway, because that's how we view it. We've got some partnerships with High Plains Technology Center where we transcript some of the work that students in the wind energy program do down there at Woodward. We've been working for years now on a welding program to hopefully go up in Guyman someday. But it's really an opportunity in that TAPS program in particular to help expose kids to concepts and ideas that are going to serve them regardless of what highway they take, regardless of what exit they take. They're going to have those technical skills that if they're going to work at Seaboard, they're going to be the top choice at Seaboard. They're going to beat out the kids who maybe went to my kids' school and didn't have the TAPS program. So I just encourage you to take a look at this seriously. I know it's a big commitment for your community, and I don't want to diminish that in any way, but as an educator and as a parent, it's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, guys? I mean, I've got some cards. I'm an open book in terms of, if you got a question later that you think of, and I put my cell phone on my card. When I first took this job, everybody said, don't do that. I feel like I work for the patrons. I just do. I feel like that's my job, and if I'm not willing to answer my cell phone, then what am I doing? And as an ag teacher, I did that. If it was a pig sick at 10 o'clock at night, or if it was a pig that died the next morning, that's just who I am. My wife doesn't always like that, but it's just the way it is. It's lasted for 29 years, so I guess she's okay with it now. So
I might add some things just about the equipment. I had some ideas as we're talking through that. One thing that happens when you say this works, you guys vote on January 9th and it passes, that also provides more resources to Beaver County because there's state dollars, not a lot of state dollars, I'll be real honest, that go into the formula that goes to tech centers as well, and then there's federal dollars that come into it as well. So if we're talking about lottery funds that go out for grants for equipment and those different things, you don't necessarily have access to them now. But you would have access to those things as a part of a technology center. I can provide, and I fight every day almost for more resources to go out to the schools and things like that, and we're positive that Kenton's going to get those things done, right, Kenton? Yeah. But we are giving some more access to students. So what I hope happens is that we multiply what local funds come in to provide more access to students, and it helps with the equipment costs and things like that we can provide. About $20 million goes across the state in Perkins funding that comes through career and technical education. So there's some other resources that come because you're a part of something. Perfect segue to some of that.
You could mention, like our CDL class that just graduated, each one of those individuals, a lot of them were company sponsored, and then some of them were in there on their own dime, and just what he's talking about, each one of them, we cut checks that came through Workforce, is that right? Yep. For $1,600 a piece that those guys, they'd never had access to before, so, you know, it's just what he's talking about, open some doors. Yes, sir, and that's different, and that's what we've talked about here. Like the 6th grade model at Woodward, they get a 9 weeks. They bust them into 9 weeks, so they get, you know, they've got 200 kids, so it's basically 50 kids in 9 weeks that are in that TAP program. It's more than that. I'm messing the numbers up, but anyway, it's they're capturing those kids at a 9-week interval. Then, like here, and I'd say out in Beaver County with the 4 schools, I've told them, and that's the kind of reason I brought them over the other day. I said, you need to start thinking about scheduling, because I'm not going to tell. I mean, the reality is, I could see that thing going down to like 5th grade. I could see it. I mean, it can be what we want to make it. And until they show me a rule, actually, until they show me a law that I can't do that, then we're going to do it because it works. So, and you know, that's based on whatever their periods are, 47-minute or whatever. We're going to put the job out there. If this thing passes on January 9th, we're going to start looking on the 10th. And the reality is we will have those TAP, you know, going in the fall. I mean, it's a struggle, I'm not going to lie, but I don't sit back. When I'm looking for the next bull or I'm looking for the next show pig, I'm on the road doing it, and that's who I am here too. I mean, I don't just sit back and hope that something comes to me. But I'll tell you this too, you may be surprised what you have locally. The ability to teach, allowing teachers the ability to teach, has been like the easiest recruiting thing for us to get teachers into TAP. Because, I mean, the ability to go in there and teach, okay, here's your end game, and you get creative. And we've taken that out of our best teachers because we put them in a schematic that says you got to do it this way. Yes. They're certified teachers is what we call to have the credit, for the credit to be accrued at the high school or the middle school. We have to be certified. I mean, the teacher has to be certified. However, you guys are pretty aware of the current state of education in Oklahoma, and if it's an industry person that had a really good interest and wanted to start down the hoops, we can emergency certify. And I do that all with my diesel and a lot of those daytime instructors. Most of those people, I really don't care whether you can, I shouldn't say care, I can go find the best teacher in the world. If they don't know squat about diesel mechanics, don't know how to start a truck, we got a problem. I can't put them in there teaching diesel mechanics. So what we do a lot of times is get diesel mechanics people, and I'll use that as an example because that guy had never taught before 4 years ago, so you're going to have to help me. And we brought him in because of his passion to teach kids, and he's working on he had some college hours, and he's got to get 15 hours in 5 years, isn't it? And so we can work with them on that, get them emergency certified, and they're up and going. But in my TAP program, it's been certified teachers is what we've had in there so far. The way Woodward does, and it's on a 9-week or semester. I may get the line to you on that, but it's set opposite, I think, their computer, and so that kid's getting, like, if they're in the next semester, if they're in computer, it's just they're just flip flopping it that way. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. What we did on Woodward's, we just have an MOU because we went in and dumped that money in there, and we've not done anything on utilities and maintenance at Woodward. I mean, we take care of all the maintenance. I mean, it has to be maintained. I'm not going to put that on local public schools. Maintenance is stretched way thin. It is everywhere. We have done the maintenance on the utilities. Woodward, we've never. It cost us more. And this was at that time when we did this 7 years ago. They said it's going to cost more to meter it off and get it and go back and do it than it is. But we probably put 300,000 in that thing in the first couple of years, you know. So it'd be a long time. But we just do an MOU is how we would do it on these. It makes the most sense. I mean, memorandum of understanding. That just between the local school and their school board, our school board, that me and the superintendent work out. So, and I think that makes the most sense out here. So, we don't own buses, but we pay them per mile for their bus trip. So, like I'll use Buffalo as an example. Buffalo this last year, they couldn't get TAP kids there in the morning. Their daytime kids come in the morning. And Mr. Spradlin called and he said, "Hey, I really want to get kids to TAP, but I can't get them there till after lunch." And I said, "Well, Spradlin, can we get them back up there and then get them back down here? I mean, can your bus driver do that?" He goes, "Sure." We pay them for 2 trips. So, and we pay them, I think it's $2.50 a mile on the bus trip. So, and that goes to the school. No, I'm paying them $2.50. I mean, $2.50 is, Travis, plenty. I mean, they're taking care of the maintenance. They're putting the fuel in it. I'm paying them $2.50 a mile. Yeah. Would on tap. We're pretty much like we are in our daytime programs, about 1 to 15, 1 to 20. If we can do that, it's pushing that because it's so popular. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's easy to brag about you got 600 kids going through today, but then you got the question that you're posing me with that it's a real deal. And so, but I mean, it's yeah. I had a kid 2 weeks ago stuck his finger in the gear deal right after he'd been told not to stick his finger in the gear deal. Now I can assure you, 60 kids in there will never stick their finger in the gear deal anymore. I don't know about that kid, but that's what I said I knew after that day. So, anyway. Anything else, guys? I'd be happy to, or later after this. I'm good. Kenton, you good? Yes, sir. Okay.
This is a Votech, so students that are over 18, adults, are there adult programs that would open up? And secondly, what about summers? I mean, a lot of our schools don't have a lot going during summers. Do you have summer programs?
LPN is a strictly adult program. So that when we talk about LPN, that's that CDL, strictly adult. We do, at our current pace at High Plains, we do have some adults in our daytime programs. I don't foresee that being the model, because it's not the model. We're trying to get away from that at High Plains, because it's just better. Those adults they've got a line of sight. They come in there for something, and I can't control the local pep rally, the ball team that leaves on Thursday to go play ball. So, you know, you're trying to keep that on pace. It doesn't work very well. Other question. What was your other question? Okay.
But I'd add to that, one thing that we talked about, gaining access. So one thing that you do about adults, those adults would have access for in-district opportunities at Woodward also. So if things are not there, they're not an out-of-district person anymore. They're an in-district person. So you're not only bringing things to Beaver County, but you're accessing the campus that already exists. And when we first talked about this with Ken in the group of superintendents, I'll be real honest, there was questions about, well, why not just stand up our own in Beaver County? And so I went through, what I knew of the assessment data and everything. I said, you really can't afford it. I mean, there's no way you can provide the personnel, then the equipment, the buildings, and then you got to have the administration, or I'm not going to accredit you. So when you gain access to the other campus and then can add things, you did it at a cheaper rate, a more efficient rate, and that's what's exciting about this opportunity, is that we're figuring out how do we work together to make something regionally happen for Northwest Oklahoma.
And to that note, I've got a meeting Thursday morning with Northwestern's president, and didn't know Dr. Dinger was going to be here tonight, but we've done some stuff there on talking, but Northwestern's RN program is going to utilize our facilities next semester. And selfishly for me, for my kids, I want to be able to see they can be an RN in Northwest Oklahoma. They can go from zero to the end right here. And with her, it would be the same deal. We'd want to get those kids to where they can see that's an opportunity, and I can stay at mom and dad's and continue to work on the farm or do whatever they're doing and have their deal and not have the cost. That's how we're going to keep them here.
And you can have healthcare in Northwest Oklahoma.
Yep. So, and I do promise you guys, I know he came from East I-35, but I did dip him before he came in tonight, so he didn't carry anything over here. So, anyway. Any other questions? If Texas County residents decided to vote to put it to a vote, yeah. So, and you're not a resident. Yeah.
So let me walk through that just a little bit. So Kenton walked through the process briefly. I'll give some more explanation about how it works and what came about. So tech centers were formed in two different ways, by school district or by county. And they can get brought into a tech center by county or by school district. Well, this made more sense for all of us to come together and come by county to make more bang for your buck for these students, because it would be really hard, and I'm not speaking for Barkley, but if I was a superintendent at High Plains, it'd be really hard to come for one school district. They're just small enough that's the way it is. Sorry that it is, but it is the way that it is. So those are the two processes you can come through, by county or by school district. We talked about it. Most logical route that we saw was by county. So what happened once they pass a resolution to that we're going to move forward with this, then it has to go to Barkley's board. And their board has to say, yes, we're okay with them coming into High Plains Tech Center. Then it has to go to my board, and I make a recommendation to my board and say, yes, we'd love to see the growth there in that area. My board votes for it. Then what that does is we pay for it. We have a set aside for every year's annexations, and we set aside from the agency to pay for that to come up to the ballot. So that's kind of how it worked out. And it would work very similar if anyone ever wanted to come in, or if you wanted to go out at some point. It comes back to a vote of the people, and then it has to go through these boards originally. So, yep. So what can happen, and I will walk you through that a little bit also. We did this in southeast Oklahoma right after I came on board. A county in southeast Oklahoma had came on. In the same instance that you're talking about, part of the school district was not in that county. So then what happened a few years later is that school board decided, hey, we want the rest of our residents to be able to vote. So they had another resolution. We paid for it again. The rest of that district voted in. What other questions might we have? Man, I should talk more often. Everybody just be quiet. You did? Awesome.
Yeah, see, I went in 79, but I was in Liberal, Kansas. Luckily, there I got to go half a day when I was in high school. It got me started in my trade of electrical work, and I've been in there for 43 years.
That's this model. It's half a day. Yep. Great. Mhm.
At Liberal, you could go when you were at least a senior. You could go half a day.
Mhm. Yeah. So our full-time programs, that's what we're talking about, is half a day while they're in high school, junior and senior year. And then if they want to continue something after, that's post-secondary, they can do that as well. Mhm. That's a great point. Any questions for our assessor? I'll put him on the spot. He's talked to me afterward, but okay. Kent, anything else? Travis, anything? Your show. Thank you.
I would like to just thank all you guys for coming, and if you have any questions, please just ask and notify. I probably won't know the answer, but I can refer to these gentlemen and find out the answer. So again, just thank you guys for coming.